I didn't think much of it at first. A name lighting up on my phone at midnight. Her name. I didn't answer. By the time I picked it up, the call had already cut off. No voicemail, just the small silence of a missed connection. I lay there for a long while, staring at the screen like it might explain itself. Eventually, I convinced myself it was a mistake. People don't call tenants at midnight unless something's broken, and nothing in the house was broken. At least, nothing she'd admit. The next morning, I found myself in the kitchen earlier than usual. She was already there, standing by the counter with a mug of coffee, one hand resting on the edge of the sink like she needed the support. She wore a gray sweater, sleeves pushed halfway up, hair tied loosely. She glanced at me, then down at her cup. "You're up early," she said. I nodded, opening the fridge even though I didn't know what I was looking for. "Couldn't sleep." She murmured. A non-answer. The kind people give when they're not sure how much they want to share. There was a beat of silence. The kind that makes you aware of every sound in the room, the drip of the faucet, the hum of the fridge, the scrape of my heel against the tile. I pulled out some bread, set it on the counter. She moved aside automatically, but not far. I could feel the warmth of her shoulder, even though we weren't touching. I wanted to ask about the call. To say I'd seen her name on my screen, that it kept me awake long after I should have closed my eyes. But instead, I said, "You're always up this early." Her lips curved slightly, not quite a smile. "Habit, I guess. The house feels too quiet otherwise." I folded the corner of the bread bag, slower than I needed to, just to buy myself another moment. My eyes flicked to her hands, one wrapped around the mug, the other tapping gently against the counter like she was restless. She noticed me watching. "What?" "Nothing." I looked down quickly, heat crawling up my neck. "Just, thought you usually work later. Schedules change." She lifted her mug, took a slow sip. Then, softer, like she almost didn't mean for me to hear, "Sometimes I don't want to wait for reasons to be awake." I didn't know what to say to that, so I bit into the toast I hadn't even buttered. The crunch sounded louder than it should have. She laughed quietly, the sound quick and almost embarrassed. "You really eat it like that?" I shrugged. "Saves time. Or effort," she said. There it was, the small, almost teasing edge she slipped into conversations when she wanted to lighten them. It made me smile, even though I tried not to. The moment passed, like most of them do. She rinsed her cup, left it on the drying rack, and wiped her hands on a towel. I thought she'd head upstairs. But at the door, she hesitated. Her voice came lower, careful. "By the way, last night. I think I called you by mistake." "Meant to call my brother." I nodded too quickly. "Yeah. No problem." She studied me for a moment, eyes searching mine as if to check whether I believed her. Then she gave the smallest shake of her head, like she was letting something go, and turned away. The kitchen felt emptier after she left, though the smell of her coffee lingered. I sat there, phone in my hand, thumb hovering over her name in the call log. I almost pressed it. I almost did. Instead, I just whispered to the quiet room, I should call him, but in my head, I swear I heard her voice again, low and steady, whispering back, "Call me instead." The next time we spoke, it wasn't in the kitchen. It was outside, late afternoon, when the sun was just beginning to dip and the air carried that cool, in-between quiet. I was carrying a basket of laundry back from the basement. She was watering the plants lined along the porch. "Looks heavy," she said, tilting her head toward the basket. I tried to laugh it off. "Building character." She smirked faintly, though her eyes stayed on the spray of water hitting the soil. "That's what they used to tell us in Catholic school. Every chore builds character." I balanced the basket against my hip, more interested than I wanted to sound. "You went to Catholic school?" 10 years, she said, lowering the watering can. Uniforms, nuns, the whole thing. Still can't stand the sound of church bells. It was the first personal detail she'd offered me. I wanted to ask a dozen follow-up questions, but I forced myself to only say, "Guess that explains why you're always awake early." That earned me a real smile, quick, but real. She brushed a strand of hair behind her ear, and I had to look away. Adjusting the weight of the laundry like that was why my pulse felt uneven. The silence between us stretched, but not in the same way it had in the kitchen. This one hummed, like a wire pulled too tight. I finally said, "So, you've been here long?" Her eyes flicked to mine. "In this house? 12 years. A pause, then softer, long enough to see it feel too big when it shouldn't have. I didn't press. I didn't need to. The missing piece was obvious. Divorce, maybe. Or something that left her with a house built for more people than lived in it now. That thought made the distance between our ages feel sharper. She was twice my age, give or take. I was renting a room, she was letting me. If my mother knew I lingered in doorways talking to her, she'd have something to say. Probably more than something. But standing there, basket digging into my ribs, all I wanted was to stay in the conversation a little longer. She must have felt it too because she reached forward suddenly. "Here, let me." Before I could protest, she lifted the laundry basket from me with surprising ease. Our hands brushed. Just for a second, but enough. Her fingers grazed mine, warm, steady, deliberate. I let go too quickly, almost clumsy. She carried it to the steps and set it down. There. Character built. I laughed, too late, too awkward. "Guess I owe you now." Her gaze lingered on me, longer than it should have. Then she looked away, picking up the watering can again. "I'll remember you said that." The moment ended as if it had never been there. She turned back to her plants. I stood there with empty hands, feeling heavier than before. It was just a shared chore. Just a small joke. Just a brush of skin. But it stayed with me that night, long after I folded every shirt. It happened on a Wednesday. She'd asked if I could help move a box from the attic. "Old books," she said. Dust everywhere. The air was close up there, stale and warm, the kind that makes you sweat even if you're standing still. She stood near the narrow window, brushing cobwebs from her sleeve. I crouched with the box, heavier than it looked. "You sure you want to keep all this?" I asked, shifting it against my chest. She gave a half-smile. "I don't know. Some things feel harder to let go of than they should." It wasn't about the books. I knew it. She knew it. But neither of us said anything more. On the way down the ladder, I nearly lost my balance. She steadied it, one hand gripping the rail just inches from mine. I could feel her presence even without touching her, her breath just behind me, the faint scent of soap and coffee that always clung to her. We set the box down in the hallway. My shirt was damp from the heat. She noticed, I could tell from the way her eyes flicked over me and then away. Too quickly. "You should, get water," she said. Voice caught mid-thought, like she wanted to take it back. I nodded. Followed her down to the kitchen. There was no one else in the house, but the silence felt like it was listening. I leaned against the counter, glass in hand. She leaned opposite, arms folded, watching the floor. Something was shifting between us, had already shifted, maybe, but she was pulling back. I saw it in the tightness of her jaw, the way she kept herself still, as if any movement might break something open. "You ever think about," I started, then stopped. Her eyes lifted, steady. "About what?" I shook my head, forcing a small laugh. "Forget it." She didn't push. Just reached for a towel, drying her hands though they weren't wet. That should have been the end. But then footsteps echoed from the front porch. A shadow through the glass panel in the door. Her neighbor. A woman with a loud voice who waved whenever she saw me mowing the lawn. She called out, "You home," before even knocking. I felt her shift instantly, her shoulders straightened, her face smoothing into something neutral. She opened the door, exchanged pleasantries, talked about garbage pickup days, a recipe she tried. I stood there with my glass of water, silent, invisible. When the neighbor finally left, the air inside felt different. Cooler, but sharper. She closed the door softly. Didn't turn around right away. When she did, her eyes met mine and held for just a second too long. Long enough to make my chest tighten. Then she broke it, stepping past me toward the hallway. I thought it was over. But halfway there, she stopped, hand brushing the doorframe. Her voice was quiet, almost a whisper. "Don't make this harder than it already is." And for a second, just a second, she didn't move. I thought she might turn back. I thought I might close the distance between us. But she walked away, leaving me in the kitchen with the taste of her almost answer hanging in the air. It was late evening when I found her sitting on the porch steps. She didn't notice me at first, her gaze was fixed on the street, arms loosely folded, a glass of wine resting by her side. I hesitated. Thought about walking past. Instead, I sat 2 steps lower, close enough to hear her breathe, far enough to pretend it meant nothing. "You ever just watch people's windows at night?" she asked suddenly. I glanced at her, surprised. "What?" She gestured with her chin. Across the street, a family sat around their dinner table. Laughter carried faintly through the open curtains. It's like you get a whole story in a snapshot. Makes you wonder if they're as happy as they look. Or if someone's about to get up and leave. Her voice was steady, but there was something brittle underneath. I followed her gaze. The family's shadows moved across the wall, blurred and fleeting. "Guess you'd never really know." "No," she murmured. "You don't." Silence settled. The cicadas hummed. Somewhere down the block, a dog barked once, then quieted. I wanted to say something, anything that would reach the part of her that sounded tired. But instead, I asked, "Bad day?" She gave a short laugh, humorless. "It's not one day. It's years piling up. And then suddenly you're in your 40s, looking at a house too big and a phone that doesn't ring when you need it to." Her words hung there. She didn't look at me, but I felt her meaning settle between us like another presence. I swallowed. My hands rested on my knees, fingers twitching for no reason. "You're not alone, though." That got her attention. She turned her head slowly, eyes sharp in the dim porch light. "Aren't I?" I looked down, throat tight. I could have said more. Could have told her about the way I checked my phone at night, waiting for her name to appear again. But the words caught. She leaned back, exhaling, the kind of sigh that carries years in it. "You're young. You can't want this." The way she said this, like it was dangerous, like it was shame itself. My chest tightened. "Maybe I don't know what I want," I said. "But I know when something matters." Her hand twitched against her glass, as if she almost let it go. Her lips parted, no words, just the start of them. The porch light buzzed overhead. A car drove by, headlights sliding across her face, catching the doubt in her expression. She finally spoke, voice soft, breaking just slightly. "Don't make me say something I can't take back." I stared at her, at the space between us that suddenly felt like a cliff edge. If I moved closer, it would all change. If she reached for me, nothing would be the same. We didn't move. The moment stretched, fragile and unbearable, holding us both in place. And then, quietly, carefully, she lifted her glass, took a sip, and turned her eyes back to the glowing windows across the street. As if the moment hadn't happened. But it had. And we both knew it. The next few days felt different. She wasn't avoiding me exactly, but the rhythm had shifted. No casual greetings in the kitchen, no lingering on the porch. Her car was gone more often, though she never said where. When I did see her, her smile was brisk, polite. I told myself I was imagining it. That people have their moods, their silences. But the change was too sharp to ignore. On Friday evening, I came home to find her already at the dining table, papers spread out around her. Bills, receipts, a half-finished glass of wine. She barely glanced up when I walked in. "Busy?" I asked. "Trying to be," she said flatly, scribbling something down. I stood there awkwardly, not sure if I should leave. "Want me to help?" That got a reaction. She looked up, eyes tired, almost raw. "With what?" "The mortgage? The divorce papers? The part where I keep telling myself I didn't ruin everything?" The words hit harder than I expected. Divorce, spoken out loud, not implied. The kind of truth that changes the air in the room. "I didn't know," I said quietly. Her laugh was sharp, humorless. "You weren't supposed to." She pushed the papers into a pile, as if hiding them. Then she stood abruptly. "I should get some air." I almost followed. Almost. Instead, I watched her slip out the door. That night, I stayed in my room, phone in hand. I typed out a message, "You don't have to carry this alone." Deleted it. Typed another, "I'm here, if you need me." Deleted that too. The screen glowed in the dark, my thumb hovering. I never pressed send. By morning, she was gone again. The house felt larger without her, emptier in a way I hadn't noticed before. I tried to distract myself, laundry, errands, scrolling mindlessly. But everything circled back to her absence. The quiet of the hallway, the coffee mug left drying by the sink. On Sunday, I caught sight of her through the window, out front, talking to someone. A man. Older than me, dressed neat, holding himself like someone who used to belong here. He handed her something small, an envelope, maybe, and for a moment, her face softened in a way I hadn't seen all week. I froze at the window, heart pounding, torn between walking out and pretending I hadn't noticed. She didn't look toward the house once. When he left, she lingered on the porch, envelope in hand. Then she tore it cleanly down the middle and let the pieces scatter into the bin. By the time I worked up the nerve to step outside, the porch was empty. That night, I sat at the table where her papers had been, staring at the ring left by her glass of wine. My phone lay beside me. I typed again, "We should talk." I stared at it, waiting for courage that never came. The message stayed unsent. It was raining the night it finally broke open. Not a storm, just a steady, soft rain that blurred the streetlights and tapped against the windows in the kitchen. I found her sitting at the table, hands folded loosely around a mug she hadn't touched. The steam was long gone. She looked up when I entered, then down again, as if she hadn't decided yet whether I was welcome. "Couldn't sleep?" I asked. Her lips curved faintly. "Seems to be contagious in this house." I poured water into a glass just to have something to do. The air was thick with everything we hadn't said. Finally, I sat across from her. Not too close, but not far. My hand brushed the edge of the table. Her eyes followed the movement, then lifted back to mine. "I saw him," I said before I could stop myself. Her expression didn't change, but something in her posture tightened. "My ex." I nodded. Didn't know what to say. "There's not much to say." She let out a long breath, shoulders lowering. "He thinks I should have tried harder. For the marriage. For us." Her voice faltered. She shook her head like she regretted saying even that much. "You don't believe him," I said carefully. Her eyes locked on mine, sharp and searching. "Do you?" The silence after that felt endless. My chest was tight, my throat dry. I shook my head. No. I don't. Something shifted then. She leaned back, hands curling around the mug again. When she spoke, her voice was quieter. You make it sound simple. It feels simple, I said. And for the first time, I didn't stop myself. I think about you. More than I should. More than makes sense. Her breath caught. She didn't look away, but her fingers trembled faintly against the porcelain. You shouldn't say that, she whispered. Then why does it feel worse when I don't? The rain filled the silence. The ticking clock on the wall sounded louder than usual. She closed her eyes, like the weight of the moment pressed too hard. When she opened them again, they glistened, not tears exactly, just something unguarded. I can't promise anything, she said. I can't be what you think I am. I'm not asking you to be, I said quickly. I just don't want to pretend anymore. We sat there, breathing in the same rhythm, both of us aware of the line we'd drawn and how close we were to crossing it. Her hand shifted on the table, fingertips grazing the wood between us. Slowly, without looking away, I moved mine closer. Not touching, just near enough to feel the warmth radiating. Her lips parted, then pressed together, a decision folding in on itself. At last, she exhaled, a sound like surrender. And then, quietly, almost too softly to hear, she said, okay. No smile. No kiss. Just that word, fragile and steady, filling the space we'd both been holding back. And somehow, it was enough. Time didn't shift all at once. It moved the way seasons do, small changes, barely noticed, until suddenly the trees outside had different leaves. We didn't sit down and define anything. There were no promises, no lines spoken like vows. But the silences changed. They stopped being walls. They became space we could rest inside. I noticed it first on a Tuesday morning. 8:47 a.m., the kitchen clock humming faintly as the toaster clicked up. She walked in, hair still damp from a shower, wrapped in that gray sweater I'd first seen her in. She poured herself coffee, black, no sugar. She didn't ask what I wanted. She just set a second mug on the table beside me, already filled. A small thing. But it landed deeper than it should have. Later that week, I found her on the porch bench at dusk, a mug of tea in her hands. She shifted slightly, wordlessly making space for me to sit. We didn't talk much. Just listened to the cicadas, the rhythm of passing cars. My shoulder brushed hers once, and she didn't move away. If someone had looked at us from across the street, they might have thought nothing unusual was happening. Just two people sharing a quiet evening. But inside the stillness, there was something that felt earned. Like the pause after years of holding your breath. She told me small things sometimes. Fragments. A song she used to love, the way her son always forgot his keys when he lived here, how she hated the sound of church bells. I told her things I didn't usually tell anyone, about my mother's silence at dinner tables, about how I always left messages unsent because I was afraid of saying too much. None of it was dramatic. Just threads, weaving slowly. One night, as I folded laundry, she leaned against the doorframe. You really never use fabric softener, she asked, amusement tucked into her voice. I looked up. Saves time. The line was an old one, from that morning in the kitchen months ago. But when she laughed this time, it was softer, warmer, like she remembered, too. We never talked about the first missed call. Or the moment on the porch when neither of us moved. We didn't need to. Those silences had already done their work. Now, it was enough to sit at the same table with coffee cooling between us. To hear her footsteps on the stairs and not wonder if she was walking away. To watch her fold a napkin carefully, slowly, as if it mattered. One evening, rain tapping against the windows, she reached across the table, not far, just far enough to rest her hand lightly on mine. No words followed. None were needed. I thought about the first time I almost said it, the first time she told me not to make it harder. And